And it's great to see like Jogmo, for example. I played with him on T1 Acad. He was always such like a great teammate, and seeing him like and seeing all his success, and like it makes sense. You know, the way he worked, the way he played, the way he expressed himself in game and out of game, it really shows.
Hey guys, this is Pedro back with another interview covering America's Spotlight Series 2024. I might have jumbled up the name, but it doesn't really matter. But I have here with me for this occasion Vic of Cloud9 coming off of a Grand Finals loss to G2 in said competition. But nevertheless, Vic, thank you so much for taking the time, giving me a chance for a quick conversation. And so, about the most recent matchup, how are you feeling? How are you coming off of that a match for you in particular?
Um, I mean, this is the last all season event for the year. Win or loss, it was just fun to play with, especially with the Shopify girls and playing on stage in Americas. This is my first time, so I mean, it was a learning experience, and everything was like a first time, so it was fun.
Yeah, I believe that you've kind of been competing mostly online up until this point. I might be wrong on that. You can kind of correct me on that in your coming answer. But it's good to kind of have this kind of like preview of what's to come for next year. And so, what's it like just having to get used to this new environment? Going from tier two, tier one, and having to be on the main stage.
Yeah, this was my first uh, LAN, not my first LAN tournament, but my first time being on stage in Americas, and I have been playing online most of my career, with occasional LAN or here and there. But I think playing on stage now and just feeling everything out, seeing how people play on stage, even though it's a fun tournament, you kind of get a feel of how certain people play or certain how tendencies that you're gonna find yourself in when you're playing on stage. Maybe if you're a little more nervous compared to playing at home and stuff like that. So I mean, it is just learning and experiencing it firsthand. So it is a little different, but it's nothing crazy in a sense compared to other lands I've been to, especially like the Berlin one. That one's a little more hectic, and this one's a lot more calm. Like I can still play my game if that makes sense.
No, no, for sure, and yeah, like some people kind of take it a different way, and to listen to you, that kind of describe how you're taking it. It's like it's definitely good to hear, and definitely one that creates excitement for what you will do later on in next year. And so now I kind of want to ask you about just having to play with, or more so asking you more in depth about playing with the likes of Sarah and Alexis. Obviously, those two are coming into this, having won two consecutive GC championships. And so, what has been your biggest takeaway from having them as your teammates and just having to play with them?
I think the biggest takeaway I had is I guess their view on the game. It's very similar, and the way they approach the game is close to how I view it, or just like any normal pro player. I think people belittle like game changers a lot, um, just regular players, I guess, like men. But I think they're also just as talented. They know how to play the game. They know how to work together with everyone. So they make the game really easy. In this tournament, you can kind of tell too. Like Alexis, her util is amazing. You have to see her set up Francis a lot, or Oxy, and Sarah. Like her util is great, and the way she played the game was very good too. And like me and her were playing like Ace and Pro, and it was super easy. It wasn't anything difficult at all.
There's a kind of way to like kind of describe where the level of GC is at to like tier one, or do you kind of look at that level difference, if you could kind of like express it.
I don't think it's very far. I guess maybe it's a little different when it comes to full GC teams compared to full like America's team or full tier two teams because of the atmosphere and maybe the way they see the game and the competition. But at the end of the day, it's like game changers have their own like meta and way of playing, so they're more used to that. America like tier one might have their own way of playing, and meta same with tier two. So it's like when you um intertwine slash watch these teams, they might look different and quote unquote worse than another, but it's just different leagues. So it's just different play styles at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. And now I kind of want to pivot the topic or the subject from that to now yourself. Obviously, like as I said, first time in tier one for your career, I assume. And I kind of want to ask you about when did that whole kind of thing come together with you joining Cloud9? What was that situation like for you from going from Moist X Shopify, and then going over to your current team?
Um, to start, I guess after everything unfolded, like we got third place. I was talking to my agent a lot, and there were a lot of like open spots for teams in theory with 100 Thieves, or Bang went to Sentinels in a way. People were trying out for that. I think 11 were trying out spots, D9. So there was like opportunity compared to other roles like set or initiator where it was kind of locked and everyone had the initiator players. Um, but for myself, I think I tried out for C9. We talked back and forth. Eventually, they wanted me, and it was dumb for me to kind of linger around. But instead of just starting and joining a team that wanted me, so I kind of chose C9 because of that. And that's kind of the end of it. But yeah, I did join pretty early in the off season compared to other teams. But I did have opportunities to try out and stuff like that. But I think it was just because of the teams and the roles kind of matched up with a lot of open smokes roles.
Yeah, and it's great to see, a young talent like yourself to make the jump to tier one and having to finally have a chance to compete against the big boys of VCT. And so, it's been a long journey, getting to this point. You've been kind of competing in this game basically from almost the start back in like 2021 and stuff like that, with your first team, official team in T1 Academy when they were in North America before going over to Pacific, and
Yeah,
then having to go into Soar and then Shopify, the tier two slash tier one version, and then going over to most X Shopify, and then now getting to Cloud9. That said, what I kind of want to ask you is sort of how do you look back on your long journey from competing relatively in tier two to now getting into right now where you're currently at?
I think my journey throughout like tier two and I guess like tier three from T1 Acad, a lot of the things I've done and teams I've joined, I always felt like it was a step up, even though it might be considered tier two when like I was on Solar. I still think, and then I joined Shopify. The players I was playing with did compete in tier one before because of the whole franchise situation. Where we played challengers the first year. I still considered that team like a tier one team, and the experience they taught me as a player, I got to grow from it. And building on that year after last season with MXS, I got to build off of what I learned previously with the tier one players I learned from and the new upcoming tier one players, I guess. And we got to kind of flourish and build ourselves. So I think a lot of like my journey, my career has just been building off of other players and building off of um, the teams I've been on. But people categorize all this as like tier two, tier one, but I see it as like NA is so good, but it's just there's just a limited amount of players in the league, and you are playing against tier one teams in scrims, tier two teams in scrims, so you aren't just like locked in when you're playing and practicing. So I do view a lot of this is just like a bubble, but at the end of the day, I do think that like I always played against these players and genuinely grown.
Yeah, like I do like remember looking back onto like, your time in T1 Academy. It's just an example, but back then you had like Jogamo as your teammate. And and also the same can be said as like tier one caliber players, being a part of your team in the early years of your career. And obviously the same can be said about your most recent team in MXS, in which you got Mata over in NRG, and I believe Fly is now over in Koi. And so, yeah, like, how do you kind of look at the difference now in just having to play with these kind of players early on, in the lower levels of Pro Valorant to now, seeing them and now having a chance to take on against them in the highest level possible?
I think playing with these players that I guess quote unquote were in tier three, tier two when I played Jogmo, played with Mata, Fly on all these players that got to tier one. I think you kind of see their hunger and what made them become tier one pros. So like you get to see the growth um, during the moment, but also when they leave and go to new teams, you kind of see them flourish as players because at the end of the day, if you're going to be joining new teams, you're going to build yourself up, you're going to do all this. And it's great to see like Jogmo, for example. I played with him on T1 Acad. He was always such like a great teammate, and seeing him like and seeing all his success, and like it makes sense. You know, the way he worked, the way he played, the way he expressed himself in game and out of game, it really shows. Same with Mata. I think he's like a lot of the teams that he might have struggled on before, he got to build off of it, and now you get to see him in tier one. All of this is just like a learning curve, and it might take time, but trying to see the growth of all the players and how they learned and built themselves in their own way.
Yeah, and now with all that said, I got one more question to ask you. Is 2025 now everything's done? No more of off-season events, I assume, from now until the start of VCT again. And so, as you guys now look towards 2025, and now you're with Cloud9, and now we have this roster with adding in Mitch also some time ago. And so, how do you kind of look at the how do you kind of like look at the team's expectations towards competing in 2025 and surpassing what you guys or what that team has built this past season?
Um, I guess playing with Mitch again, or not again, but playing with Mitch now for the 2025 season. I guess a lot of the stuff that we did in the all season is kind of reset, but I'm not like too worried about it. I think coming up for the season, I think we're gonna set a way that we want to play, like not counter, but like improve on how we want to play. Because I know C9 with their core, Moose, Zeppa, and me, Oxy, and me with MXS, Mitch with Oxygen, we're gonna have a lot of ideas, a lot of things that we can build and grow from. I think this upcoming year, I think we wanna just have all these ideas come into one, have a set way of playing, and making sure that we can play without regret in a way, and not um, overthink things, and just moving like progress as a team. And I think that's the biggest thing.
Of course, and with that said, we'll be looking forward to what you and the rest of Cloud9 will be doing once the 2025 season does kick off, pun intended. So, Vic, thank you so much for giving me a chance for a
Thank you.
quick interview. Best of luck goes to you and the team moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day.